I have to say, I think this is absolutely finally a victory for common sense. Probably you all remember this case of Auriol Grey, a 50-year-old woman. She was jailed for 3 years last year for the manslaughter of a 77-year-old cyclist who basically, cycling on the pavement towards Auriol Grey sort of waved her hands at her and shouted at her, as I would have done and any sensible person would have done, because she shouldn't have been on the pavement. And the woman sort of lost her balance, fell over and veered into the road. She was hit by a car and killed. Now, yesterday, a ruling was given to overturn her manslaughter conviction regarding that it was unsafe, as clearly it was. Well, let's talk about this with Nick Freeman. He's lawyer and road safety campaigner. Good morning to you, Nick.
Morning, Julie.
I have to say, when I first saw this case, I thought, I don't understand what she's done wrong. She didn't push her into the route of an oncoming car. She didn't sort of wait and think, great, I'll kill her. Clearly, obviously, it wouldn't have been murder, But even manslaughter, you have every right to remonstrate with someone who is breaking the law, cycling on the pavement towards you. I've done it pretty much every week since I've been alive, and will continue to do so. This was always an unsafe conviction, but how did it happen?
Well, it was a very narrow pavement, 2.4 metres wide. They were going to collide with each other. The defendant, Auriol Grey, had cerebral palsy and she's partially blind, so there wasn't sufficient pass. There's a 77-year-old grandmother coming towards her on a bike. So it's quite possible that even if she had done nothing, the pedestrian had priority and the cyclist would have fallen.
I never get out of the way of a cyclist, ever. Oh, by the way, also, kids on scooters, don't get out of the way of them either. They're supposed to go round me. It's a rule I have for my kid. I'm sorry. There's an order. I get out of the way for people who are elderly and disabled, pushing a buggy with kids. There's a priority order, and all civilised people know what it is. But this is the thing. She shouted to her, "Get off the effing pavement." Yeah, I'd have shouted exactly the same. And she was quite right to do so.
Look, the grandmother shouldn't have been there, but, there's no infrastructure, so one sympathises with her. She's trying to keep fit. She's 77. And we don't have the infrastructure.
No, that's what the roads are for. She doesn't have to cycle on that bit of the road. If she doesn't like that bit of road, she doesn't need to cycle there.
Julia, if we had cycling infrastructure, we'd all be a lot safer.
Tell you what, if we'd built our country 2 years ago instead of over the last, hundreds and hundreds of years, then maybe we would do that. But lots of cities don't have space.
Maybe some of the investment in 20-mile-an-hour limits and LTNs and stuff like that could be channeled in a different direction. But in any case...
let's just... Look, there isn't... I've looked at that. Looked at the CCTV. I've looked at that section of that particular... It's not wide enough to have a cycle lane and to have cars going by.
It isn't.
Exactly, but that doesn't mean cyclists can then go on the pavement.
They'd have to cannibalise even more of the pavement, which is already narrow. The point is, from a legal perspective, as you've rightly pointed out, there was never any unlawful act. No. And it's astonishing. If you look at the timeline of this occurred in October 2020. She received a 3-year sentence. She was released on bail, having served a year's sentence in March of this year. So this poor lady feels responsible for killing someone. She's had the ordeal of having a trial. The Ward family have obviously lost their grandmother. So that's been a catastrophe. And it's just been a complete nightmare for everyone. It should never have happened.
No, it should never have happened. But it would never... my heart goes out to the family of the 77-year-old cyclist. I'm really sorry. No one would want her to die. But none of this would have happened if she'd been obeying the law.
From a legal perspective, as the Court of Appeal said, there was never a case to answer. And I don't understand, with all these lawyers and the judge who dealt with this at the Crown Court, I'm not criticising anyone, but I'm just curious. How has anyone not realised where is the unlawful act that's actually the necessity for this offence?
Yeah, but this is the thing.
It was never there.
There are so many cases...
How have we got to this stage?
Yeah, there are so many cases that don't go to court. I know, obviously, the death of somebody is far more serious than, say, shoplifting. But the amount of times, we talk to, high street store owners going, I've got the CCTV, I've got the guy who's stolen the stuff, I've got him on camera, here's his name, his details. Police still won't take the case forward. CPS won't prosecute. And yet they're prosecuting this. It defies belief, given the number of cases where there's clear evidence of a crime and intention that are not prosecuted.
The financial cost of keeping this poor lady in prison. She's partially sighted and she suffers from cerebral palsy. You look at the video and you think, she's done nothing wrong. Yeah. And the law says she's got to do an unlawful act which contributes to death. So, It should just never have happened. It's one of those things.
Well, I'd like an investigation into the CPS decision to prosecute and investigation into the magistrate, because I'm sorry. I think...
Well, no, it would have been a judge. It won't be a magistrate.
Magistrate, got to Crown Court,
case. So, and look, they've got lawyers on both sides. You know, what was argued? The Court of Appeal said there is no case to answer. There was never that essential ingredient of an unlawful act, as you've rightly pointed out. So how has this happened? There should be an investigation. And why is it taking so long for justice to be done?
Absolutely. She still served time behind bars. Nick Freeman, thank you.
How she's going to recover.
Yeah, exactly.
Her life is, you know, really suffered.
Exactly.
It's everyone.
Nick Freeman, thank you for joining us, a lawyer and road safety campaigner. Benedict Spencer.